Hello and happy October. You've made it 1 month in. This week we've got some really exciting stuff that connects really well to the work that we've already done. You're going to look a lot at purpose in our readings with our Zwires text, and you're also going to look at purpose and clarity in some slides that I've prepared. So we've talked a lot about teacher clarity in this, and we've talked a lot about kind of John Hattie's research. So your activities this week, your readings are going to talk a lot about purpose, and then the slides are going to connect to that. So when we're looking at setting purpose for students, I think it's kind of tricky. A lot of times secondary teachers, I think, are so much more effective at it than we consistently might do in elementary. But right now, a giant movement in schools is to, and the research is showing a great movement, is to be looking at clarity. So when we go into classrooms, what we do is we initially start by just talking to students, and we'll talk to them and say, tell me a little bit about what you are learning today, and see what the kid says. Then we say, tell me why you're learning this today. And the answers can be fascinating. It can be everything from really thoughtful, like, oh, I'm learning about area today because maybe if I need to design a room later, or because I can figure out how much materials I would need for X, to it's math time and this is what we do, to my teacher said so, to I'm not sure why I'm doing this. So the why and the purpose in it is a very interesting question with students. And then we always ask them the last question of, how do you know you are successful in this? And that we're looking for a criterion to break down for kids. So as a teacher, when I'm planning, I think about, okay, what are my learning intentions? That's kind of my what am I learning? If you've studied Marzano before, they'll call them learning targets. The shift in Fisher and Fry is learning intentions, but it's basically just like, what are we learning? And that connects directly back to our standard. So we say the standard is the big rock at the top, then we break it into smaller chunks. So how do I get to that? What are the 4 big concrete pieces, or the 3 big concrete pieces that break that standard down? And then maybe a daily learning intention, a smaller bite, is under that for you're doing that day. So the what I am learning is more about the meat of the standard and less about the activity, if that makes sense. So what I'm learning is kind of the bigger piece. I'm learning about volume, right? Not I'm doing this activity. Then the why, again, moves into purpose. So why are we doing that? It speaks to purpose. As a literacy person, I like to always think about purpose the same way I think about text. So one set of purpose can be the activity or the learning to yourself. So I'm learning this because I myself am going to need to do X. So the Fisher and Fry example that they always love to use is flying on an airplane. Like, I'm learning about this because someday I will fly on an airplane and I will need to do X, Y, and Z to get ready, whether it's budgeting for it or whether it's understanding the pattern of it or the process of it. So the work or the learning to the learner can be an individual purpose. The second way is learning to learning. So I'm learning this in my class because it will contribute to this next step. So I'm learning about Algebra 1, these steps, because it's going to connect to Algebra 2. So future consecutive learning, number 1, prioritizes that as something important we should know, but also can be the purpose for doing that. I'm doing this because we're going to be quizzed on it, because it builds on the next unit we're doing. So learning to myself, learning to learning, and the third is always learning to the world. So myself, and we consider, and Fisher and Fry will say, like, school is real world, right? It's not like we suddenly leave school and then all this happens. Like, we are currently in the real world, but what do you need to know as an involved citizen, as an educated citizen, as someone with a greater purpose in our community? Why do you need to know this? So that's learning, to the world. So learning to self, it's important to me for something, learning to learning because it builds sequentially, or learning to the world. So those are 3 lenses that I think you can look through when you're thinking about the purpose of your content or the purpose of the work that you're doing. And the last one that gets a little more complex is success criteria. So it's taking that big activity you're doing and breaking it down into the most bite-sized pieces so that kids can start to say, like, okay, I can do this piece and this piece, but I can't do this next. Or a teacher can say, oh, and the evidence of their work, they can do this piece and this piece, but my next step is going to be step 3 with them. So it informs the learner, so they're more engaged in their learning, and it informs the teacher so that they're more sequentially thinking through how to support student learning. So that will be your clarity piece and your purpose piece that's tied into your readings. My hope is this transfers largely across all content areas. So I hope that number 1, that you've been exposed to it before, which I assume a lot of you have. And then you're just going to give it a good try, to try it with something and just kind of get into the meat of it, try it out in a low stakes fashion. So I hope you enjoy that. I hope you enjoy the videos and the examples from teachers. So I think it's thoughtfully done. And usually we always say at our Teacher Clarity, their kind of comment is always that it's not another thing, but it is the thing that we are doing. So it really, in those steps, helps us think about what strategies would we put in? How do we break down that text? How do we approach things for kids so that it's accessible and they're able to jump into that learning in a way that they feel successful and they know what their next steps are. So that's one big chunk of it. A second big chunk is one of my favorite things that we do in this semester of work, and that is looking at your Think Aloud videos. So your Think Aloud videos were submitted last week. We get to view them for our peers this week. This strategy connects to the John Hattie research around micro-teaching, which has a 0.88 effect size. So if we remember, the dial turns over 1 year for 1 year at 0.4. Micro-teaching is a 0.88. So the idea behind micro-teaching can be that you video a classroom, and then together as a PLC or a group of professionals that all teach science or all teach math are reviewing that, helping each other with teaching strategies, helping critique each other, or support. I also think appreciative inquiry, seeing the things that they're doing well and helping them reinforce that in their practice, and seeing the things that they could work on to improve as a group. So micro-teaching has a really high effect size. It can be very vulnerable. You can also do it independently. So I'll tell you, as a practicing teacher myself, I think my 3rd or 4th year of teaching, I chose micro-teaching from the Danielson framework. And I would video my classroom. I mean, back 20 years ago, it was on like a tripod sitting in the classroom. It's so much easier now than it used to be, but I would video my classroom, and then I would watch the videos with the evaluation tool. My administrator would watch the videos with the evaluation tool, and then together we would sit down and debrief them. I will say it was one of the hardest things I've ever done in evaluation, but I learned a ton. And I chose it and felt super empowered to see myself teach. I will say I deleted a ton of videos. So a lot of times I would video and right away I could feel like, oh my gosh, I have no wait time, or oh my gosh, I really didn't set purpose for what we were doing. And I would just delete the video and try again the next day. And there's so much power in that, right? Recognizing yourself that it needs to be improved, and then I could submit the ones I wanted to my administrator. But it was a very honest relationship around just improvement and understanding that those pieces getting there to submit the final video even were excellent teaching reflective tools. So I love that you guys jumped in and tried this. One of your activities is going to be to kind of mimic a micro teaching the best we can, but to jump in and watch somebody else's video and to give them some critiques and pointers, both appreciative inquiry, seeing what they did well and reinforcing that, and also some critical feedback that helps them move the next step forward. So I think you'll enjoy that. The third big rock that I want you to look at is also signing up for your professional book club. So professional book clubs will happen a little bit later, but I'm going to ask you to preview the texts that are available and sign up for your first choice and second choice. So this will be later on where you're going to read the books with a partner. We have such a small group, so it might be some of you solo, but if you're not with a partner or independently, you'll read that book. Then you'll prepare a way of your choice. There's a whole document that outlines your choices, but you'll prepare a way to teach us about that book also. So you'll see in the selection, there's all different kinds of like argument writing. There's a service and leadership activity book. There is some really practical strategy books and flip books. There's an excellent Fisher and Fry content strategy book if you like the idea of just like learning more about close reading or about chunking or different strategies that you can try. So you can kind of pick your way if you want more of a methods kind of book, or if you want more of an in-depth like writing subject book. Those are all in there. If you have an additional text that you'd like to suggest, please don't hesitate to email me to help provide some suggestions. I'm happy to add them. So 3 big things. Purpose around clarity. So what are we learning? Why are we learning it? That's your big purpose. How do we know we got there? Reviewing your Think Alouds with a peer, and then signing up for your book club. So I hope you are all well. Reach out if you need anything.